My name is Deborah Richards. I'm the Director of Student Services for the Capital Region Education Council, or CREC, which is one of 6 regional education service centers in Connecticut. And today I'm going to talk with you about our journey in Connecticut over the last, actually going on 8 years now, and using life course planning and many of our other state agencies, and more recently with our Department of Education and a collaborative effort with our local school districts. Let me just start by giving a little bit of history. So Connecticut's finishing our 7th year, entering our 8th year, with using life course planning in a variety of state agencies. This is kind of our collaborative picture of what that looks like. It was really spearheaded by our Department of Developmental Services and our Department of Rehab Services. And I'm going to show you a graphic in a minute that's going to talk about the introduction of the tools for our State Department of Education and our educational agencies, which has really been over the course of the last 3 years. We've also done this in collaboration with our DD Council and our University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. So I am a member of the CREC, the Regional Education Service Centers in Connecticut. There are 6 regional education service centers in Connecticut, and we provide a variety of services to our local districts. So the compilation of all the regional education service centers touch every school district in the state of Connecticut. So although we're tiny, we actually have 169 school districts, believe it or not. We have a fair number of constituents that we work with. And the regional education services really are nonprofit, fee-for-service public agencies. We particularly have a long history of providing services to students with complex disabilities. So my organization specifically provides direct services to 5,000 students with disabilities. So this is kind of what our trajectory has looked like it's probably hard for you to see, but I'll give you some of the highlights over the last 7 years, moving on to the 8th year. And so the first 4 years actually were our other state agencies that were working with life course planning and kind of inviting school districts or the State Department to participate in communities of practice. Most of that was really around the use of general person-centered planning tools and talking about transition services for kids, particularly during that 18 to 21-year-old range as they were aging out of the school district into our adult service agencies. But really it's more for the last, I'm going to talk more specifically in the next slides about the last 3 years going on our 4th year, where the State Department of Education and the school districts began to get much more integrally involved. And so I'm going to walk you through kind of the phases that we've gone through over the last few years. So one of the things that the RESCs did originally is we actually did our own STAR and talked about why we thought we were a good group of organizations to assist with working with our school districts. And that really had to do with our general capacity around serving students and families with disabilities in our state. So if you look at the STAR that we're all pretty familiar with, we have a lot of technology staff, both for IT infrastructure in school districts, as well as assistive technology. If you look at kind of our general strengths and expertise, it really is in serving some of the most unique kids with disabilities. We have a variety of therapists with very specific expertise, behavior analysts who our districts use and rely on to support students in their local school districts. So then if you look at some of the other resources that we bring, certainly we interface with some of the entitlement services in our state, not only our state agencies, but also other services. We provide lots of supports to families in accessing things like our state healthcare system or parents who are looking to be on SNAP benefits. So we really interface a lot with other services throughout the state. And then we're constantly working with our community-based organizations. So given that we actually provide services in all 169 school districts, then we're represented in 169 schools, districts, and the community-based organizations there. So we have strong relationships with them. And then our relationships clearly go from the State Department to multiple state agencies to all the local organizations. So we started 4 years ago with 2 representatives from each of our regional education service centers. Our Developmental Disabilities Council actually funded us to go through the training. And once we were trained as ambassadors, we then started to network with the other state agencies that had been using life course planning. And one of the big differences came really in our 5th and 6th year as we were moving forward. The Connecticut State Department of Education offered to fund the regional education service centers to provide training in each of our regions at no cost. And one of the real turning points in that training is that they allowed us not only to provide training to districts, but to open it up to families and other state agencies. And that may seem like a small thing, but if you're used to kind of the silos of funding of state agencies, to have a state agency allow us to be open to whoever wanted to come to the training. And that really strengthened the training that we were doing by having people from multiple agencies and families present with districts. It really created a much stronger training. And then the other thing, and again, this may seem minor, but we created one kind of universal PowerPoint that everybody was going to be used in their training, but also the Connecticut State Department offered to fund getting them the same training materials printed, and printed very professionally for all the state agencies, including the RESCs. So that, again, that may seem like a small thing, but it was actually a fairly big ask and fairly expensive, and one of the limitations of some of our parent organizations providing training to parents. So it was great to have our State Department step up and offer to do that. So part of what has happened with our districts, you know, they always saw our adult service agencies as part of this entitlement system, similar to the way they operated, and really working with them so that they could understand that this is a helpful tool just for families and just for planning. It's not just for access to state-funded resources. There was always some concern about if we brought life course planning tools and visions into an IEP meeting, that maybe people felt they were obligated to provide all those services. So we've had to kind of work through that with our local districts. And then from the state perspective, the state really was looking for more active participation for parents and students in the IEPs, to be more full partners, to really become part of the teams, and to improve the outcomes of all the post-secondary training and employment initiatives that were going on in the state. And so probably where we are right now, both this year and moving forward to next year, probably one of the biggest changes that we're seeing is, as we know, every student in our state has an IEP. And historically, we've had a very compliance-driven IEP form, has like hundreds and hundreds of compliance items, and it is not a very user-friendly form nor a student-centered form. So we spent the last year working with our State Department redesigning a new IEP form that we will be rolling out over the next 2 years. And one of the ideal things about this form is the front page. The first page starts with, what's the vision for this student? What are this student's strengths? So it's a real different perspective on just what the meeting should look like, what the focus of the meeting should be. And the document is kind of secondary, but it's giving us an opportunity as we train every district in the state on this new, supposedly IEP form. It's really a new process and perspective on how we go about planning for all our students with disabilities in Connecticut. So as I take you back to that initial kind of the steps we're taking, we're headed into that 8th step, which is really embedding life course planning in some of our ongoing processes for students with disabilities. And we're really excited about, over time, how that's really going to change the narrative for our students and their families, and our school districts, and how they're approaching our visioning for the students in our state. So thank you.